The stars looked different from up here. Jake Morrison stood by the large window of the Zenith Crown, watching distant galaxies spin slowly in the darkness of space. He had been in space before, but never this far from Earth. Never on an alien ship, surrounded by creatures that looked like they came straight out of science fiction movies. The Zenith Crown was massive. It stretched for miles in every direction. A floating city made of metal and crystal. Thousands of aliens lived and worked here. This ship belonged to the Galactic Council, a government that ruled over 200 different alien species. And now, after years of watching from the shadows, Earth had finally been invited to join. Jake was the captain of the human delegation. It was his job to make sure everything went smoothly. His team was small, just 5 people including himself. There was Lisa Hayes, a communications officer who could speak 7 Earth languages and was learning 3 alien ones. Kevin Drake was their security specialist, a former Marine who never seemed to relax. The other 2 team members were scientists, here to discuss technology exchange programs. The aliens treated them like curious children. Jake could see it in the way they looked at the humans, the way they spoke slowly, as if explaining things to someone simple. It bothered him, but he kept his face calm. This mission was too important for his pride to get in the way. "Captain Morrison," a voice called out. Jake turned to see Ambassador Zeke Thor approaching. The Velcrin was tall, maybe 8 feet, and his body looked like it was made of living crystal. Light passed through him in strange ways, creating rainbow patterns on the floor. "I trust you are finding our vessel acceptable." "It's impressive," Jake replied honestly. "We have nothing like this back home." Zeke Thor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, well, your species is quite young. You have only just learned to leave your planet. Most council races had mastered space travel before they even discovered fire, as you call it." Jake felt his jaw tighten but forced a smile. "Everyone has to start somewhere." "Indeed," Zeke Thor said, though his tone suggested he did not really believe humans would ever catch up. "The formal negotiations begin tomorrow. I hope your people understand the significance of this opportunity. Membership in the Council is not given lightly. Many species wait centuries for the chance you have been granted." Before Jake could respond, Lisa appeared at his side. She touched his arm gently, a signal they had worked out. It meant she needed to speak with him privately. Zeke Thor noticed and gave a small bow before walking away, his crystalline body making soft chiming sounds with each step. "What is it?" Jake asked once the ambassador was out of hearing range. Lisa pulled out a small tablet. "I have been monitoring the ship's communication channels like you asked. There is something odd. The cargo bay on the lower decks has been sealed off. No one is allowed in or out, and the energy readings from that area are strange." "Strange how?" "High. Really high. Like they are powering something big down there." Lisa frowned. "I asked one of the Kraith workers about it. You know, those insect-looking ones?" He got nervous and walked away without answering. The Kraith were an insectoid species with hard shells and too many legs. They made up a large portion of the ship's working class. Jake had noticed they seemed scared of humans, which was odd considering they were each about the size of a large dog and had sharp mandibles that could probably cut through steel. "Keep monitoring it," Jake said. "But be careful. We are guests here. The last thing we need is to be caught spying." Lisa nodded and walked back toward the communications room. Jake returned his attention to the window. Something felt wrong. He had learned to trust his instincts during his years in the military. That feeling in his gut had saved his life more than once. The rest of the day passed slowly. Jake and his team attended a welcome dinner where they were served foods that were supposedly safe for human consumption. Some of it tasted fine. Some of it tasted like motor oil. Jake ate it all with a smile, making polite conversation with alien delegates who seemed more interested in studying him than talking with him. Kevin found him later that night in the small quarters they had been assigned. "You should see this," Kevin said, pulling up a video on his tablet. It showed the cargo bay from a security camera. The footage was grainy, but Jake could make out a large metal container in the center of the room. It was surrounded by force fields that glowed bright blue. "What is that?" Jake asked. "I do not know." "But look at this." Kevin fast-forwarded the video. The container shook. Something inside was moving. Whatever they are keeping down there, it is alive. And it wants out. Jake watched the container shake again, harder this time. "Have you told Lisa?" "Yes. She is trying to hack into the cargo bay records, but the security is tight." "Tell her to stop," Jake said. "If they catch her, they will kick us off this ship, and Earth will lose its chance at council membership." Kevin looked like he wanted to argue but nodded. "What do you want to do?" "Nothing. For now." Jake stood up and stretched. His back hurt. The artificial gravity on this ship was lighter than Earth's, and it made his muscles feel strange. "Tomorrow we focus on the negotiations. Whatever is in that cargo bay is not our problem." But even as he said the words, Jake knew he was wrong. His instincts were screaming at him. That night, Jake could not sleep. He lay in his bunk, staring at the metal ceiling. He thought about Earth, about how far humanity had come. 100 years ago, they barely had computers. Now they were traveling between stars, meeting aliens, joining galactic governments. It should have felt like a triumph. Instead, Jake felt small. The universe was so much bigger than he had imagined. There were species out here that had been exploring space for thousands of years. Some of them could do things that seemed like magic. And humans? They were the newcomers, the primitives, the species that everyone else looked down on. He heard a sound. At first, he thought he imagined it. Then it came again, a low rumble that made the walls vibrate. Jake sat up quickly. That sound came from somewhere deep in the ship. From below, from the cargo bay. Jake grabbed his communicator. "Lisa, Kevin, are the corridors filled with panic?" Aliens of every shape and size rushed past Jake as he ran toward the lower decks. Some had too many legs. Others floated in bubbles of strange gas. A few were so small, he had to be careful not to step on them. All of them were running away from the cargo bay. Jake was the only one running toward it. His communicator buzzed. "Captain, where are you going?" Lisa's voice sounded worried. "To see what we are dealing with," Jake replied, dodging around a group of slug-like creatures that left a trail of slime on the floor. "That is a terrible idea," Kevin said through the comm. "Let the ship's security handle it." "Have you seen any security heading down there?" Jake asked. Silence answered him. "That is what I thought. Get to the emergency stations with the others. Help evacuate anyone who needs it." "Sir, I should be with you," Kevin protested. "That is an order, Drake." Jake cut the connection before Kevin could argue more. He reached a lift that would take him to the lower decks. The doors opened, and he stepped inside, pressing the button for Cargo Bay 7. As the lift descended, he checked his sidearm. It was a plasma pistol, given to him by the Council, as part of his diplomatic security clearance. He had practiced with it but never fired it outside of a training range. The lift doors opened to chaos. The corridor ahead was torn apart. Metal walls were shredded like paper. Lights flickered and sparked. There was blood on the floor, though Jake could not tell what color it had originally been. In the strange red emergency lighting, everything looked dark and wet. He heard screaming. It came from deeper in the corridor, past a corner he could not see around. Jake moved forward carefully, his pistol raised. His heart pounded in his chest, but his hands were steady. Years of military training took over, pushing fear into the background where it could not slow him down. The screaming stopped suddenly. That was worse than the screaming. Jake reached the corner and looked around it carefully. What he saw made him freeze. 3 Velcrin security guards lay on the ground. Their crystalline bodies were shattered into thousands of pieces. Past them, a group of Kraith soldiers were trying to fight something. Jake counted 6 of them, all armed with energy weapons. They fired shot after shot at a creature that should not exist. The Vorthan stood 12 feet tall. Its body was covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. It had 6 limbs, each ending in claws as long as Jake's forearm. Its head was massive, with a mouth full of teeth designed to tear through metal and bone. 6 eyes glowed red in the emergency lighting, tracking every movement around it. One of the Kraith soldiers tried to retreat. The Vorthan moved faster than something that large should be able to move. It caught the soldier in its jaws and shook once. The sound was terrible. The other Kraith broke ranks and ran, their many legs carrying them past Jake without even seeing him. Now it was just Jake and the creature. The Vorthan turned its 6 eyes toward him. It made a sound, low and rumbling, like an engine starting up. Jake could feel it in his bones. He raised his pistol and fired. The plasma bolt hit the creature's chest and splashed across its scales like water. The Vorthan did not even flinch. It started walking toward him slowly, almost casually, like it knew Jake could not hurt it and wanted him to understand that before it killed him. Jake fired again, and again. Each shot did nothing. The creature's scales were too tough. He was wasting ammunition. He lowered the pistol and started backing away, trying to think. His mind raced through everything he knew about fighting. There had to be a weakness. Everything had a weakness. The Vorthan lunged. Jake threw himself to the side, rolling across the floor. He felt claws pass through the air where his head had been a moment before. The creature crashed into the wall behind him, leaving deep gouges in the metal. It roared, a sound so loud that Jake's ears rang. He ran, not away from the creature, but toward it. The Vorthan was still turning around from its missed attack. Jake slid under its body, like a baseball player stealing home base. As he passed underneath, he looked up and saw what he was hoping for. The scales on the creature's belly were smaller, not as thick as the ones on its back. Jake kept sliding until he was past the creature, then scrambled to his feet. The Vorthan turned to face him again. This time, it did not charge. It was learning. It watched him carefully, all 6 eyes tracking his movement. "Come on," Jake muttered to himself. "Think." His communicator buzzed again. He ignored it. All his attention was on staying alive. The Vorthan began to circle him, looking for an opening. Jake circled too, keeping his distance. The corridor was wide but not wide enough. If he tried to run, the creature would catch him before he made it 10 steps. Behind the Vorthan, Jake saw more aliens appear at the far end of the corridor. They were not security forces. They were scientists, based on their equipment. One of them was shouting something in a language Jake did not understand. The scientist looked terrified. He was pointing at the Vorthan, and then at a device in his hands. Jake understood. These scientists were the ones who brought the creature on board. This was their fault. And now, they were too scared to fix their mistake. The Vorthan noticed the scientists. It turned away from Jake, focusing on the new prey. The scientists froze. They could not seem to move. Fear had locked their muscles in place. Jake did not think. He just acted. He ran at the creature from behind and jumped onto its back. His fingers found gaps between the scales and held on tight. The Vorthan roared and began thrashing, trying to throw him off. It slammed itself against the walls. Jake felt his ribs crack, but he did not let go. The creature spun and bucked like a wild horse. Jake pulled himself higher, climbing toward its neck. If the belly scales were weaker, maybe the neck was too. His muscles screamed in pain. His hands were cut and bleeding from the sharp edges of the scales, but he kept climbing. The Vorthan reached back with one of its clawed arms, trying to grab him. Jake saw it coming and pressed himself flat against the creature's back. The claws scraped against scales, missing him by inches. The creature roared in frustration. Jake reached the neck. Up close, he could see that the scales were connected by softer tissue. It was not much, but it was something. He pulled the plasma pistol from his belt and pressed it directly against one of the soft spots. At point-blank range, maybe it would do something. He pulled the trigger 3 times. The Vorthan screamed, a sound that made the whole corridor shake. It dropped to its knees, throwing Jake off its back. He hit the ground hard and felt something else break inside him. Pain shot through his chest with every breath. The creature was wounded but not dead. It got back to its feet slowly, black blood dripping from its neck. All 6 eyes focused on Jake with pure hatred. This time, when it moved, there was no testing, no circling. It came straight at him with all its speed and power. The Vorthan tore through the scientists in seconds. Their weapons did nothing against its rage. Jake watched in horror as the creature grabbed 2 of them and threw them against the walls with enough force to leave dents in the metal. The other scientists ran, screaming in languages Jake could not understand. They left behind their equipment and their courage. Jake knew he should run too. His body was broken, his weapon useless, and he was facing a monster that had just killed trained security forces without breaking stride. Running made sense. Survival made sense. But something in him refused to move. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the anger at watching innocent beings die. Or maybe it was just that he was too hurt to run anyway. The Vorthan turned back to Jake. Blood dripped from its jaws. It took a step forward, then another. It was not rushing now. It knew Jake was beaten. This was just cleanup. Jake gripped the metal pipe tighter. His vision was starting to blur from pain and blood loss. He could feel wetness spreading across his uniform, where his broken ribs had probably punctured something important. He had minutes at best. But he would use those minutes. "Come on then," Jake said quietly. "Let us finish this." The creature charged. Jake waited until the last possible second, then threw himself to the right. The Vorthan passed by him, its claws tearing through empty air. As it passed, Jake swung the pipe with everything he had left. The sharp end caught the creature in its wounded neck, digging into the soft tissue between scales. The Vorthan screamed. Black blood sprayed across the corridor. But the pipe was stuck. Jake pulled, but it would not come free. The creature spun, and Jake lost his grip on the pipe. He fell backward, landing hard on the floor. His communicator was buzzing non-stop. Through the fog of pain, he could hear Lisa and Kevin both shouting at him. Other voices, too. They were telling him to retreat, to fall back, to save himself. Jake wanted to laugh. There was nowhere to fall back to. The creature stood between him and any escape route. The Vorthan pulled the pipe from its own neck with one clawed hand. More blood gushed out, but the wound was already starting to close. Jake watched in disbelief. The thing could heal. Of course it could heal. Why would anything be easy? He heard footsteps behind him. Jake turned his head, the movement sending fresh waves of agony through his body. Lisa was right behind him. "No," Jake tried to shout, but it came out as a whisper. "Get back." They did not listen. Kevin opened fire with his plasma pistol, aiming for the creature's eyes. One shot hit home, and the Vorthan roared in pain, covering its face with its massive hands. Lisa grabbed Jake under his arms and started dragging him backward. "You stupid, heroic idiot," she muttered as she pulled. "Why do you always do this?" "Part of my charm," Jake managed to say through gritted teeth. Kevin kept firing, backing up as he did. The Vorthan was temporarily blinded, thrashing in pain and rage. But even blinded, it was dangerous. Its claws swept through the air randomly, catching Kevin across the chest. He flew backward and hit the wall hard. His pistol clattered across the floor. "Kevin!" Lisa screamed. She was torn between helping him and dragging Jake to safety. "Help him," Jake said. "I am fine. You are not fine. You are dying. Then 30 more seconds will not matter. Help him." Lisa hesitated, then gently lowered Jake to the floor. She ran to Kevin, who was groaning and trying to sit up. Blood stained his uniform, but he was alive. Lisa helped him to his feet, and together they started moving back down the corridor. The Vorthan's ruined eye had stopped bleeding. The creature lowered its hands and looked at them with its remaining 5 eyes. It made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then it started walking toward them again, slow and steady. It knew they were trapped. Jake tried to stand, but his legs would not work anymore. Too much damage. Too much blood lost. He could only watch as the creature moved past him, focused entirely on Lisa and Kevin. They backed away until they hit a wall. There was nowhere else to go. The Vorthan raised one massive claw, preparing to strike. Jake saw Lisa close her eyes. Kevin put himself in front of her, even though he could barely stand. They were good people. Vorthan. They did not deserve to die in this corridor. So far from Earth, Jake's hand found something on the floor next to him. His fingers wrapped around it. The plasma pistol. His or Kevin's. He did not know and did not care. He raised it with a shaking hand and aimed at the back of the creature's head, at the base of its skull where the scales looked smaller. "Hey," Jake called out. His voice was weak, but the corridor was quiet enough that everyone heard him. The Vorthan turned around. All 5 of its working eyes focused on Jake lying broken on the floor. It seemed confused. Why was this small creature still fighting? Why had it not given up? In the nether. Jake pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt struck true, hitting the base of the creature's skull. The Vorthan staggered. Jake fired again. And again. He kept firing until the pistol ran dry. Each shot hit the same spot, burning away scales and digging deeper into flesh. The creature fell to one knee. Then both knees. It tried to turn back toward Lisa and Kevin, but its body would not respond. The shots had damaged something important in its brain or spine. The Vorthan's massive body swayed, then crashed to the floor with a sound like thunder. Jake let the empty pistol fall from his hand. His vision was getting dark around the edges. He could hear Lisa and Kevin shouting, could hear them running toward him. Other sounds, too. More footsteps. Lots of them. The cavalry had finally arrived, now that the fighting was over. Hands grabbed him gently. Someone was talking about medical emergency and critical condition. Jake tried to tell them he was fine, but the words would not come out. The darkness was getting bigger, swallowing everything. The last thing he saw before passing out was the Vorthan's body lying still on the corridor floor. At least he had stopped it. At least Lisa and Kevin were safe. That was something. When Jake woke up, he was not sure how much time had passed. Hours? Days? The room he was in looked like a medical bay. White walls, soft lighting, machines beeping steadily. His body felt strange, like it belonged to someone else. There was no pain, which was concerning. Either they had given him really good drugs, or he was so damaged that his nerves were not working anymore. "You are awake," a voice said. Jake turned his head slowly. Lisa sat in a chair next to his bed. She looked tired. Her eyes were red from crying or lack of sleep or both. "Kevin?" Jake asked. His throat felt like sandpaper. "He is fine. Broken collarbone and some cracked ribs, but he will recover fully." Lisa leaned forward. "You, though. You were dead, Jake. Technically dead for almost 3 minutes. The alien doctors had to use technology we do not even understand to bring you back." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "Finally," she said, "the whole ship saw what you did. The security cameras recorded everything. Every delegate, every crew member, every alien species represented on the Zenith Crown watched a human fight a Vorthan and win. Do you understand what that means?" Jake tried to shrug, but his shoulders did not want to move. "That I am crazy? That everything they thought they knew about humans is wrong?" Lisa pulled out her tablet and showed him a video. It was security footage from the corridor. If you won, and won, Jake watched himself climb onto the Vorthan's back. Watched himself get thrown around like a toy. watched himself keep fighting, even when any sane person would have given up. The video quality was clear enough to see every detail. The way Jake moved. The way he calculated each attack. The way he refused to stay down, no matter how many times the creature hit him. Even Jake had to admit it looked impressive, if you ignored the parts where he was clearly dying. This video has been sent to every member species of the Galactic Council, Lisa continued. Human news networks back on Earth are broadcasting it non-stop. You are famous, Jake, across 200 alien civilizations and our own planet. Everyone is talking about the human who killed a Vorthan with his bare hands. I used a pipe and a pistol too, Jake pointed out. Not just bare hands. The Kraith security forces that ran away were armed with military-grade weapons. They shot the creature dozens of times and did nothing. You did it with standard equipment and pure stubbornness. Just staring at you like you were some kind of puzzle he could not solve. The door to the medical bay opened. A doctor entered. Though calling it a doctor felt strange. The being looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. It drifted over to Jake's bed and began examining him with tendrils that passed right through his body without touching it. Your recovery is proceeding well, the doctor said in a voice that sounded like music. Your species has remarkable healing capabilities. Most beings with your injuries would require months of treatment. You will be walking within days. Days? Jake asked, surprised. He felt like he had been hit by a truck. Multiple trucks. Your bone density is extraordinary. Your muscle tissue regenerates faster than we anticipated. And your cardiovascular system. The doctor paused. It is designed for a much harsher environment than this ship provides. You are built to survive. After the doctor left, more visitors came. First Kevin, walking carefully but grinning widely. He pulled Jake into a gentle hug. You saved our lives, sir. Thank you. You came back for me, Jake replied. We are even. Not even close. But I will let you believe that. Next came the scientists who had brought the Vorthan on board. There were 3 of them left. 2 had died in the corridor. They looked ashamed and terrified. The leader, a reptilian being named Slek, could barely meet Jake's eyes. We are responsible for this tragedy, Slek said quietly. We thought we could study the Vorthan safely. We thought our containment systems were strong enough. We were wrong, and beings died because of our arrogance. You had every right to let that creature kill us. You owed us nothing. Yet you fought to save us anyway. Jake wanted to be angry at them. Part of him was. But looking at their faces, seeing their genuine remorse, he could not hold on to that anger. Just do not make the same mistake again. We will not. The Council has banned all Vorthan research indefinitely. Our careers are over. We will spend the rest of our lives working to make amends. Slek bowed low. You have our eternal gratitude, human. After they left, Jake asked Lisa to help him sit up. His body protested, but it was manageable. Through the window of his medical room, he could see into the corridor beyond. Dozens of aliens stood there, watching him. Some he recognized from the diplomatic meetings. Others were crew members, workers, people he had never met. They were all staring at him with expressions he could not quite read. Was it fear? Respect? Maybe both. When they noticed him looking back, some of them bowed. Others made gestures that were probably signs of respect in their cultures. A few simply turned and walked away quickly, like they were scared to be near him. You have made quite an impression, Lisa said. Half the ship treats you like a hero. The other half treats you like you are a Vorthan yourself. What do you mean? The Vorthan is a nightmare creature from ancient galactic history. Before the Council formed, before most species achieved space travel, Vorthans hunted across planets. They were unstoppable, unkillable. Entire civilizations fell trying to fight them. Lisa looked out at the watching aliens. Then they went extinct. or everyone thought they did. For thousands of years, Vorthans became legends. Stories parents told their children to scare them into behaving. And I killed one, Jake said slowly, understanding. You did not just kill it. You beat it in single combat, using weapons that should not have worked. You climbed on its back. You kept fighting after it broke your bones. You died and came back. Lisa turned to look at him. To them, you are not just a human anymore. You are something else. Something dangerous. Over the next few days, Jake healed faster than anyone expected. The alien doctors were amazed. They ran tests and asked endless questions about human biology. Jake cooperated, though he found it odd that they were so surprised. Humans were tough. Everyone on Earth knew that. Apparently, everyone in space was just finding out. Ambassador Zixa Thor finally came to speak with him properly. The Velcrin stood at the foot of Jake's bed, his crystalline body reflecting the room's lights in rainbow patterns. He was silent for so long that Jake started to wonder if something was wrong. I owe you an apology, Zeeks Thor said at last. I judged your species by appearances. I assumed humans were weak because you lacked natural armor, or claws, or size. I thought you were prey animals pretending to be predators. And now? Jake asked. Now I understand that I was looking at strength the wrong way. Your people are not strong despite your biology. You are strong because of it. Zeeks Thor gestured with one crystalline hand. Most council species evolved on gentle worlds. Mild climates, abundant food, few natural predators. They developed intelligence and technology because they had the safety and time to do so. But not humans, Jake said, seeing where this was going. No. Your planet is a death world by council standards. Everything on Earth is designed to kill. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. Your SPE 3 days later, Jake stood before the full assembly of the Galactic Council. He still hurt everywhere, but the alien doctors had healed him enough that he could walk without assistance. They wanted him to rest longer, but this meeting could not wait. Earth's future hung in the balance. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from over 200 species sat in circular rows that rose high above the central floor where Jake stood. Some sat in chairs. Others floated in tanks of liquid. A few were so large they appeared only as holographic projections because their actual bodies would not fit in the room. Lisa and Kevin stood behind Jake, along with the other members of the human delegation. They all wore their formal uniforms. Jake noticed that the aliens gave them much more space now than they had before. No one crowded too close to the humans anymore. The council speaker, a being named Torvan who looked like a tree with too many branches, called the session to order. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of eyes, in every color and number imaginable, focused on Jake. Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. Torvan's voice echoed through the chamber. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your actions 3 days ago in Corridor 9 of the lower decks. You engaged in combat with a restricted specimen, resulting in the death of said specimen and significant damage to council property. How do you plead? We condathed. Jake had not expected to be put on trial. He glanced back at Lisa, who looked equally surprised. Kevin's hand moved toward his sidearm before he remembered where they were. This was not good. I plead necessity, Jake said clearly. The Vorthan had already killed several beings and was about to kill more. I did what needed to be done to protect the crew of this ship. Murmuring filled the chamber. Aliens spoke to each other in dozens of languages. Some sounded angry. Others sounded approving. Jake could not tell which way this would go. The restricted specimen was contained, another council member said. This one was Velcrin, like Zeke's Thor, but older and more decorated. It only escaped because of system failures. Some on this council believe you should have allowed security forces to handle the situation. With respect, Counselor, your security forces ran away, Jake replied. He heard Kevin inhale sharply behind him. Maybe that was too blunt. But it was the truth. The older Velcrin's crystalline body seemed to glow brighter, a sign of anger. You dare insult the honored warriors of the Kraith legions? I am not insulting them. I am stating facts. The Kraith soldiers fought bravely, but they were not equipped to handle a Vorthan. No one was. Jake looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. I have read the reports from your own records. The Vorthan nearly destroyed 3 civilizations before going extinct. Your ancestors fought them for centuries and barely won. The Kraith soldiers did what any intelligent being would do when facing an unwinnable fight. They retreated to fight another day. Then why did you not retreat? The Velcrin counselor demanded. Because I am human. We are too stubborn to know when we are beaten. Jake's words caused more murmuring. He continued before anyone could interrupt. My species evolved, fighting things bigger and stronger than us. We learned to use tools, to work together, to never give up. That is our strength. Not weapons or technology. Just refusal to quit. Zeke's Thor stood from his seat in the Velcrin section. Honored council members, if I may speak, Torvan gestured permission. Zeke's Thor walked down to the central floor and stood beside Jake. I have spent the last 3 days investigating human history. What I learned disturbs me, but it also explains much. Humans have been fighting since they first stood upright. They fought animals, fought weather, fought disease, fought each other. Their entire evolutionary path is built on conflict and survival. That sounds like a reason to keep them out of the council, not invite them in, another counselor said. On the contrary, Zeke's Thor replied. It is exactly why we need them. We have grown comfortable, safe. We have lived in peace for so long that we have forgotten what real danger looks like. The Vorthan proved that. When it escaped, our warriors fled. Our scientists panicked. Our security systems failed. Only the human stood his ground. Zeke's Thor turned to face the full assembly. I propose that we not only grant Earth full membership in the Galactic Council, but that we also request human assistance in training our security forces. If another crisis occurs, another Vorthan, or something worse, we need beings who will fight rather than flee. The chamber erupted. Some aliens shouted approval. Others shouted objections. Arguments broke out in a dozen different languages. Torvan had to call for order 3 times before the noise died down enough to continue. The ambassador's proposal is noted, Torvan said. However, we must first address the matter at hand. Captain Morrison, you killed a creature that is considered sacred in some cultures, forbidden in others. You acted without authorization from the council. Some members feel this shows humans cannot be trusted to follow our laws. Jake felt his temper rising but kept his voice calm. Your laws allowed scientists to smuggle a Vorthan onto this ship. Your laws created the security failures that let it escape. Your laws got people killed. I broke your laws to save lives. If that makes me a criminal in your eyes, then I am proud to be one. The chamber went silent. Jake realized he might have just destroyed Earth's chance at council membership. But he meant every word. He would not apologize for doing what was right. Kevin stepped forward. Permission to speak? Honored council? Torvan looked surprised but nodded. Kevin moved to stand beside Jake. I am Security Specialist Kevin Drake. I served in Earth's military for 12 years before joining the Diplomatic Corps. I have fought in 6 armed conflicts and received 4 medals for valor. I tell you this not to brag, but to give context for what I am about to say. Kevin looked up at the assembled aliens. What Captain Morrison did 3 days ago was the bravest thing I have ever witnessed. He was outmatched, outweighed, and unarmed against a creature that legends are made of. He had every reason to run. Every logical argument said he should save himself. But he fought because people needed help. That is what humans do. We help. even when it costs us everything. Lisa stepped forward too. I have been studying alien cultures for 5 years, preparing for this mission. I learned your languages, your customs, your histories, and in all that study, I noticed something. Your species stopped producing heroes a long time ago. You have celebrities, politicians, scientists, but not heroes, not people who risk everything for others. She gestured at Jake. We still have heroes. Maybe that is because we are young and stupid, or maybe it is because we remember what it means to fight for something bigger than ourselves. The 3 humans stood together on the chamber floor, facing the might of the Galactic Council. Jake felt pride swell in his chest. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Torvan raised one branch for silence. The Council will now vote on 2 matters. First, whether to grant Earth full membership status. Second, whether to press charges against Captain Morrison for his actions. The tree being paused. All in favor of granting Earth full membership. Signal now. Lights began to appear throughout the chamber as different species activated their voting systems. Jake watched in amazement as the lights spread like fire, jumping from section to section. Within seconds, the entire chamber glowed with approval. The vote was unanimous. Earth is hereby recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities therein, Torvan announced. Now, all in favor of pressing charges against Captain Morrison. Signal, now. Not a single light appeared. The chamber remained dark. The charges are dismissed by unanimous decision, Torvan said. Furthermore, Captain Jake Morrison is hereby awarded the Star of Valor, the highest honor this council can bestow, for exceptional bravery in defense of council members and property. Only 15 beings in council history have received this award. You are the first human. 6 months passed since the incident with the Vorthen. Jake Morrison returned to Earth a hero, though he never felt comfortable with that title. Parades were held in his honor. World leaders wanted to meet him. News organizations followed him everywhere. He gave a few interviews, said the things people wanted to hear, then quietly requested a transfer back to regular duty. The council granted his request, but with a twist. They assigned him as the human liaison for the newly formed Galactic Response Team, a special unit designed to handle threats that normal security forces could not manage. Kevin and Lisa volunteered to join him. Together with specialists from 20 different alien species, they became the Council's first line of defense against the unknown. Training was interesting. The alien team members were all skilled in their own ways, but they had to learn to work with humans, and humans had to learn to work with beings who communicated through color changes, or who thought in hive minds, or who existed partially in dimensions that human eyes could not see. Jake found himself teaching hand-to-hand combat classes. At first, the aliens thought it was a joke. Why would advanced species need to know how to fight without weapons? Then Jake demonstrated the techniques on volunteers. A Kraith soldier who outweighed Jake by 200 pounds found himself on the ground in 3 seconds, wondering what happened. A Velcrin warrior who could bench press a small vehicle was gently but firmly placed in a hold that made movement impossible. The key is leverage, Jake explained to the class. Size and strength matter, but technique matters more. Use your opponent's power against them. Find the weak points. Every species has them. With class. With class. Word of the training sessions spread. Soon Jake had more volunteers than he could handle. Alien security forces across the council wanted to learn these human fighting methods. It became a trend. Martial arts academies opened on a dozen different worlds, teaching adapted versions of Earth combat techniques. But it was not just fighting that interested the aliens. They wanted to understand everything about humans. Why did humans push themselves so hard? Why did they take risks that no logical being would consider? Why did they form emotional bonds so quickly and deeply? Why did they cry over fictional stories and dead pets and sunsets? Lisa gave lectures on human psychology and culture. She explained concepts like hope, determination, and sacrifice. Some aliens understood immediately. Others struggled with ideas that made no sense in their carefully logical societies. Humans are contradictory, Lisa told one audience. We are capable of great cruelty and great kindness, often by the same person in the same day. We wage wars over ideas, but we also die to protect strangers. We destroy our environment, but we weep when a single tree falls. We are messy and emotional and irrational, and somehow, that mess created a species that can do impossible things. Kevin worked with alien security forces on tactics and strategy. He discovered that most council species fought in very predictable ways. They followed established protocols, used approved weapons, retreated when computer models said they should. They never adapted or improvised. Earth warfare is chaos, Kevin explained during a tactical seminar. Plans fall apart the moment fighting starts. Equipment fails. Communications break down. Nothing goes according to schedule. So we learn to think on our feet, to adapt to changing situations, to use whatever resources we have available. That pipe Captain Morrison used against the Vorthan, that was improvisation. That is how humans fight. The alien officers listened, took notes, and slowly began to incorporate human methods into their own training. Casualty rates dropped. Mission success rates improved. The Galactic Response Team became the most effective security force in Council history, and everyone knew it was because humans had shown them a different way to think about problems. Meanwhile, Earth itself was changing. The technology exchange programs brought advances that would have taken centuries to develop on their own. Clean energy, medical treatments, faster than light communication. But more importantly, Earth gained perspective. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They were part of something bigger, something ancient and complex. Some humans struggled with that realization. They wanted Earth to remain independent, to reject the Council's influence. But most embraced it. Humans had always been explorers, always pushing into unknown territories. Space was just the next frontier. Jake visited Earth whenever he could. He walked through his hometown, talked to old friends, reminded himself where he came from. The planet looked the same, but it felt different. There were aliens living in major cities now, ambassadors and traders and tourists. Human children played with Kraith hatchlings in parks. Velcrin artists displayed crystalline sculptures in museums. The barriers between species were breaking down. During one visit home, Jake met with a group of students at his old high school. They wanted to hear about the Vorthan fight from someone who was there. Jake was reluctant at first, but their teacher convinced him. "You changed the galaxy, Captain Morrison," the teacher said. "These children need to understand what that means." So Jake stood in front of 30 teenagers and told them the story. He did not make it sound heroic. He described the fear, the pain, the certainty that he was going to die. He talked about the mistakes he made, the luck that saved him, the help he received from others. "I am not special," Jake said at the end. "I did what anyone would do in that situation. I fought because people needed help. That is not heroic. That is just being human." A girl in the front row raised her hand. "But the aliens say you are special. They say humans are different from all the other species in the Council." Jake thought about how to answer that. "We are different, but not better. Just different. Every species has strengths. The Velcrin are patient and wise. The Kraith are efficient and hard-working. Humans are stubborn and adaptable. The galaxy needs all of us." Another student asked, "Do you think we will ever fight another Vorthan?" "I hope not," Jake said honestly. "But if we do, we will deal with it. Together. That is what the Council is for. No species faces threats alone anymore." When Jake returned to the Zenith Crown, he found a message waiting for him. Ambassador Zixthor wanted to meet privately. Zixthor's rooms were beautiful, filled with crystalline sculptures that caught and bent light in mesmerizing patterns. The ambassador stood by a window, looking out at the stars. He did not turn when Jake entered. "Do you know what I was doing the day the Vorthen escaped?" Zixthor asked. "No, sir. I was writing a report to the council, recommending that Earth be denied membership. I listed 20 reasons why humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent to join our peaceful society." Zixthor turned to face Jake. "Then, I watched you fight. I watched you refuse to quit. Refuse to run. Refuse to let innocent beings die. And I realized my report was wrong. Not about humans being dangerous. You are dangerous. But that was exactly what we needed." The ambassador moved closer. "The council has been comfortable for too long. Safe. We forgot that the universe is not safe. There are threats out here that our weapons and protocols cannot handle. We needed someone to remind us that sometimes survival requires more than logic and planning. Sometimes, it requires will." "What are you saying, Ambassador?" "I am saying that humans scare me, Captain Morrison. You scare me. You are capable of such violence, such determination, such refusal to accept reality's limitations. But I am glad you are on our side." Zixthor extended a crystalline hand. "The Council has authorized a new initiative. We want to establish joint training facilities on Earth, where young beings from across the galaxy can learn from human instructors. Not just combat, but also human philosophy, human creativity, human stubbornness. We want our people to understand how you think." Jake shook the offered hand carefully. Velcrin hands were fragile. "You want to create more beings like us? Yes and no. We cannot change what our species are, but we can learn from your example. We can teach our people that sometimes rules must be broken, that sometimes logic must yield to intuition, that sometimes the impossible is just difficult." Zixthor smiled. "You are corrupting the galaxy, Captain, and we are grateful for it." Over the following years, Jake watched as human influence spread across the council. It was subtle at first. Alien security forces started using improvised tactics. Scientists began pursuing research that had no logical justification, just curiosity and hope. Artists created works that made viewers feel rather than think. Parents taught their children that failure was acceptable, even valuable, if you learned from it. The council was changing, becoming less rigid, more adaptable. And it was stronger for it. New threats emerged, as they always did in a universe this vast. But now the council had beings who could respond creatively, who could think outside established parameters, who could do what needed to be done, regardless of the odds. Jake eventually retired from active duty, though he remained an advisor to the Galactic Response Team. He settled on a colony world called Haven, a place where multiple species lived together in harmony. He married Lisa, who had also retired from diplomatic service. They had 2 children who grew up speaking 3 languages and playing with friends from a dozen different worlds. Sometimes, late at night, Jake would stand outside his home and look up at the stars. He thought about that day on the Zenith Crown, about the Vorthen, about how close he came to dying. He thought about all the changes that followed, all the lives that were different because of those few minutes of violence and terror. Kevin visited often. He had taken over Jake's old position, leading the response team. He brought stories of missions, of problems solved, and threats neutralized. Some of those missions succeeded because someone remembered something Jake had taught them about not giving up, about improvising, about doing the impossible. "You started something, you know," Kevin said during one visit. They sat on Jake's porch, drinking beer and watching the sun set. "Humans are everywhere now. We are not just council members. We are leaders, teachers, innovators. The galaxy looks to us for inspiration." "That is terrifying," Jake replied. "Yes, it is." Kevin grinned. "But it is also amazing. We went from being alone on one planet to being part of something vast. And we made it better. We made them better. They made us better too, Jake pointed out. The technology, the knowledge, the perspective. Humans have advanced more in 30 years than we did in the previous 1,000. True. I guess we all benefit when different species work together. Kevin raised his beer bottle. To cooperation across the stars. Jake clinked his bottle against Kevin's. To stubborn humans who do not know when to quit. They laughed and drank and watched the stars come out. Somewhere up there, on stations and ships and worlds beyond counting. Humans and aliens were learning from each other. Working together. Building something new. The galaxy was changing. And Earth was right in the center of that change. All because one man had refused to let a monster win. All because Jake Morrison had looked at an impossible situation and decided to fight anyway. That was the human way. That was what made them special. What made them dangerous. What made them invaluable to the Galactic Council. Humans did not accept defeat. They created new options. They fought harder when things got worse. They laughed at odds that made others despair. They were stubborn, irrational, emotional, and absolutely necessary. The galaxy had learned that lesson. The galaxy was better for it. And somewhere, out in the vast darkness of space, the next threat was coming. Whatever it was, whenever it arrived, the galaxy would be ready, because humans had taught them how to fight. The chamber erupted in sound again. But this time it was applause, or whatever passed for applause in 200 different species. Some banged appendages together. Others created harmonic tones. A few simply flashed bright colors. All of it combined into a noise that made Jake's ears ring. But it was a good kind of ringing. Zix-Thor placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Welcome to the Galactic Council, Captain. I suspect you humans are going to shake things up around here." "Just trying to help," Jake said. "That is what concerns me," Zix-Thor replied, but he was smiling. "Seas evolved in an environment that tried to eliminate you at every turn. You survived not through armor or venom or size, but through adaptability and refusal to quit. You became persistence hunters. You chased your prey until it collapsed from exhaustion." Zix-Thor moved closer to the bed. "Do you know what the Kraith soldiers said after they ran from the Vorthan? They said they saw death and chose to live. Do you know what you did? You saw death and chose to fight it. That is the difference between humans and most council species. You do not accept defeat. We just do what we have to do," Jake said. "Exactly. And what you have to do would break most species." The ambassador was quiet for a moment. "The council is meeting in 3 days to vote on Earth's membership status. Before your fight with the Vorthan, the vote was going to be close. Many species had concerns about allowing such a young, violent race into our ranks. And now the vote will be unanimous. Every species wants Earth as an ally. Some because they respect your strength, others because they fear what would happen if humans became enemies instead of friends." Zix-Thor gave what might have been a smile. "You changed the galaxy's view of humanity in 1 day, Captain Morrison." Jake processed this slowly. He had died. That was new. Also dead. You really killed it. Though the doctors say it should have been impossible. The Vorthan is one of the most dangerous predators in known space. Most species will not even speak about them out loud for fear of attracting their attention. And you killed one with a plasma pistol and a piece of pipe. And my charming personality," Jake added weakly. Lisa did not smile. "This is not funny. You almost died. You did die. For what? To prove humans are tough? To save you," Jake said simply. "To save Kevin. To save those scientists who were too scared to save themselves." Jake tried to move, but his body would not respond. The pain was too much. He could only watch as death charged toward him. Then the corridor filled with light. Energy weapons fire came from behind the creature. The scientists had finally overcome their fear. Their weapons hit the Vorthan from behind, drawing its attention. It spun around to face this new threat, giving Jake precious seconds. He used those seconds to crawl toward a damaged wall panel. His fingers found a piece of broken metal pipe. It was about 3 feet long and sharp on one end, where it had been torn from the wall. Jake forced himself to his feet, using the wall for support. "You awake?" "Yes." Lisa's voice came back immediately. "Did you hear that?" "I heard it," Kevin added. "That came from the lower decks." Before anyone could say more, the ship's alarm system activated. Red lights flooded the corridors. An automated voice spoke in several alien languages, then finally in English. "Emergency. Hull breach detected in Cargo Bay 7. All personnel evacuate to emergency stations. This is not a drill." Jake was already moving, pulling on his uniform and running toward the door. Whatever was in that container was not in it anymore. And based on how scared everyone seemed of the cargo bay, he had a feeling the entire ship was about to discover why.